Hello, hello, hello. Let's go ahead and get the microphone check out of the way here. Let me know if you can hear me across the various chats we have going on right now. We are streaming on YouTube, X, and Twitch.com. If you are in one of those other chats not being YouTube, I do suggest that you head over to YouTube and chat there, as I can easily aggregate the chat there. It's a little bit more difficult on X and Twitch. So you can find me at Landy's Crypto Corner on YouTube. You can find it in the link in all of my profiles as well. So, okay, thank you, Sam. I see he says you can hear me. No name. Yes, I was. Well, you already know that. Yeah. At 4 in the morning, in fact. Hello, Spin. We got, let's see, we got Sam, Baba, Bobby, No Name, and Spin in the chats right now. We got quite a few others idling and watching. But if you would like to go ahead and chat with everybody, head on over to the Landy's Crypto Corner chat on YouTube. Best place to hang out for right now. So we find a platform solution that has good plugins, we might move, but for now, YouTube is the best one. Yes, sir. I took the long trade. I'm going to explain my trade, and we're going to review things as soon as we get rolling here. So let me get the rest of this set up, and then we're going to get rolling in about 30 seconds. All right, let's get the music under control. Give that a little pause on my end, and let's get rolling into this. Hello and welcome to Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner. This is the Pump It Up edition, where we will be talking about Bitcoin. In particular, we're going to be talking about some of the setups that we discussed last week that are now coming to fruition here in Bitcoin price action. We are going to start with kind of breaking down where we left off last week, and that was over here on one of the main setups that I was telling you about on Friday, and even prior to that, during the consolidation period or compression phase on the 12-hour. This was the main higher term time frame between the daily, or just before the daily close, that I've been watching for indications on direction for the daily in terms of expansion. We had a beautiful compression here on the 12-hour. And we did see the downside lower second standard deviation taken on a close. But remember what the criteria was. And I was very specific about this on Friday during our live stream. And that was that as long as it closed above the wick lows of the range, we're not looking any lower for expansion. And in fact, I had mentioned that if it did not pass the wick lows of the range on a close while getting expansion on closures below the lower second, it was likely to bounce back into range, and then, well, we look out for the other side of that. So we did see a 12-hour low put in here. This occurred on Saturday, heading into it was the end of Friday into the Saturday candle. So we saw it go sideways at the basis band, came back down, tapped on the lower first here, and then lift off for the 12-hour here. Now, when we start looking down in some of the lower term time frames, we can just come over here to something like the 4-hour, which has been dead simple to really understand. It was really all about this weekly here at 50,800, and the same criteria that we were talking about on the 12-hour is valid for this 4-hour and has been valid for the 4 hours. Closed below that weekly at 50,800. We were likely going to run the wick lows. We saw that, right? And we even saw lower wick lows, but we did not see closures outside of the range lows. That's where we start, looking down slightly lower, mid 50s to low 50s, possibly 49 into the upper 48s. But the criteria was very simple. We needed to see expansion, so closures below lower second standard deviation that also broke the actual wick lows of the range. And we did not see that. In fact, we saw a beautiful bounce off the mid $50,000 region, which did get tagged but did not close below there to initiate continuation down to $50,000 even and under. Came right back into range, recaptured the wick low there at 50,640 to 650, and then immediately ran to the top side of the weekly there at 51,850 or so. A few wicks above, came down. We saw the same kind of thing, run expansion below the lower second, come back down, tap on the lower second, run it right back the other way, lose the basis after tagging the upper second, hold that lower first, move right on through. Now, the beautiful setup on this is one of my favorites. And of course, you can see how this played out. Closes below the lower second that got slight expansion, retest of the lower second, bounce back to the upper, and then change trend, right? Well, we can see this now on the 12-hour. It's not exactly what we saw in the 4-hour, but we saw the deviation into the lower second that did not break the lows on a close. So run it the other way, right back to the basis, come down for a retest at the lower first, and then up. From the 15-minute perspective, which by the way, these candles are so freaking clean on the way up. From the 15-minute perspective, this was really, really simple as well. We saw the double bottom deviation of that weekly there at 50,800, and then it worked its way right back to the next weekly up top, deviation above. So 51.8, deviation to just around 52. Back down to this drawdown into the lower weekly support down here, excuse me, into this area. This was beautiful. This setup is one of my favorites. So I've explained this quite a few times. We had the expansion, right? Below the lower second, trending all the way down on the 15-minute. We got the bounce back up and then a direct retest. So expansion and then you regain the lower second, lower first, back towards the basis, and then come down for the retest by the lower second. And then we run it right back to the top side. So if this was going to fail here, this would fail as a deviation failure, right? So we had the downtrend, we have the higher low to a trend break, and then higher low out. In this case, it ran right back to the upper second, held in and above the basis, and then this candle right here at open of the New York session at 6:30 started to push above for expansion to the upside. So this expansion to the downside retest is one of my favorite setups. And the other way as well, when it expands to the upside, retests, and then down, this was just so freaking clean. This happened at about 4 to 4:15 my time. I was getting notifications, and of course I got up and traded this one because it's one of my favorites. So you can alert the bands. I have the lower first and second alerted and the upper first and second alerted. So if we do see things start to break in different directions, I get notifications. Now, in this case, beautiful downtrend break. Like I said, higher lows after retest of the lower second there. Run it right back to the upper second, higher low. Now we've got complete trend. And of course, blast off above this local range. And of course, where did it go? Oh, hey, that's right. Above the weekly, there's that September of 2021 weekly high that I was talking about and making a big deal about. It did get deviated above back here on a wick, right? So we did test $53,000. It got front ran over here on the 15th. It got directly tested, but closed under at 53 there. And that was on the 20th. And then now, third time's the charm. What do you see here? Comes right up for a test. comes back down and tests bottom side, moves right on through it, and then up, up, and away. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I've been hearing that it was like a $4 billion spot buy. Of course, there's a lot of people going, it was Jeff Bezos. He sold so much stock and now he's moving into Bitcoin. That's what we're going to hear next. So you can tell the narrative is they're already trying to cook up the narrative. So it's narrative doesn't matter. Where were we looking prior to, all of last week and the week before? The criteria was get above 53. We're looking into the mid 50s. What did we just get to? Mid 50s. So in this case, 54,550 on spot price, probably higher on some derivative exchanges. I imagine it probably hit around 55, maybe even a little bit more. I haven't actually looked. But, this was exactly the area that we had been talking about. Now, when we come back here and we look at expansion on something like the 4-hour, I do want to call your attention to BBWP expansion. It is in full-on liftoff. So this is a beautiful thing. As long as it is trading and closing candles above this zone right now for the next couple of 4-hour closures, somewhere around 52,400 to this September of 2021 weekly swing high there at 53K. As long as it's above there, it's good to keep expansion. And then above the upper second standard deviation, you can kind of give yourself a zone here. That is coming in at 53,150 to 53K. Above there, you're going to see more aggressive expansion to the upside continue. And where's the next big area to pay attention to? Well, the next big area is the deeper $50,000 region for major resistances. And that's going to be the monthly up here at 58.8 to the monthly slightly above it at 61,350. So very exciting times indeed. I would not be surprised if we saw a pause in and around the mid $50,000 region. Why, you might be asking? Well, if we go to the daily, you can see that the upper second standard deviation on the daily time frame is right there at 55,400. Now, this is going to either stay flat in today's closure, depending on where Bitcoin closes, or it might slightly increase to around $56,000. So again, like I said last week, targeting above 53, somewhere around initially $55,000 to $56,000. So mid 50s. Above there, we're looking to the deeper 50,000s. You're 58 to 58.8 at the monthly. And then that you can extend that right on up to 61,350 as the range of interest up there. I mean, it could very easily get deviated above and hit into the lower $50,000 or $60,000 region as well. Somewhere in the, mid to low 60s is not out of the question near the closing all-time highs and previous all-time high or first all-time high in 2021. So in this case, this is beautiful. This is what we want to see. Big old bull candle to the upside. Now, again, pay attention to BBWP. It is at 36, under 38 in this case. So BBWP is not currently in an expansive phase. By the way, this is beautiful, staying in the bullish control zone of RSI. This was we haven't seen any current in trend bearish divergence. So if anything, we might see this here, but we're going to check on BBWP and then we'll come back to RSI real quick here. So BBWP lining up for a shot here. But what we want to see for a sustained move to the upside is closures above the upper first standard deviation, currently at around that 52,500. Probably going to be more like 52.8 to 53 at close today for the upper first on the daily. We'll take a look in just a moment, but or the 4-hour as it stands right now. But we're going to take a look at the daily in just a moment, rather. But what we want to see for volatility price expansion to go along with Bollinger Band expansion, which we're not currently in an expansive phase. We're kind of in a range phase. We were in a slight compression phase on the low side of the bands, catching up to the basis, and the basis catching up to that consolidation. But a breakout of consolidation is very, very bullish, and we just want to see continuation. That means that we want to see Bitcoin hanging out above its daily upper first, pushing towards that upper second, possibly getting above, and then also confirming BBWP over the moving average while they both get a positive slope. So we want to see a couple closures, and then we're probably looking at the upper $50,000 region to $60,000 or so. And then we can just start extrapolating up to the areas of importance there. There's 63 on the daily, 65 on the wicks, and then of course the all-time high at $69,000. Nice. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at RSI. So I'm going to be watching BBWP for follow through. We're going to take a look at RSI real quick here. And I've mentioned this many times before. I look for in-trend bearish divergence. There really was none. So this was more destined to head to the upside anyway. So I do want to kind of get an area of interest up here. This isn't calling any of this area on RSI high. I would on a close. So there is the potential for bearish divergence, but let's go ahead and check some of the levels here. This is a not a free indicator, but there are plenty of RSI indicators with the price reads for each level. You just have to search for them in the indicators tab. You can search like RSI price levels indicator or something like that, and you should find something. Now the bullish critical zone up here is at 56,375. Bull critical is going to be this line right here, which is at the 80 read. So that's in the $56,000 zone. So 56,375, 56,400. And the user alert is up here. This is the 85 read. So this is a pretty extreme read, but the user alert line is at 60,585. So that would kind of put RSI essentially right in this zone up here at 58.8 to 61,350, provided Bitcoin, of course, pushes past the mid-50s region that it is testing right now. Of course, above there is the swing highs that are coming in at 64,899, so $65,000, and then the all-time high at $69,000 even. What a beautiful thing that is. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, let's go to investigate on some higher term timeframes here. So let's get rid of these because they're just going to get squished into nothing as I go to higher term timeframes. We can look at momentum as well on the daily here before we leave this screen. This is the advanced stoke. You can get a free stoke with with pivots. The trader Holly has uploaded what's called the BA reverse stoke if you would like to get one with pivots. This is a regular stoke, not a stoke RSI. So it is measuring close over close price momentum, not velocity of RSI. So in this case, we're looking at $54,000 as the current stoke crossing up price. That is because of the aggressive move up in today's price action that has updated live. We are likely to see that number drop after the cross up. So I would keep a close eye on it after close today to see what that pivot is. Likely going to be somewhere in the 52 to 52.5 region if I had to guess. That is purely a guess, but it's going to be based on closes. So the last momentum close open was, the open of today, basically yesterday's or Sunday's candle close into Monday's candle open, which came in at 51,730. So just below that weekly at 51,850. So we're likely to see the momentum pivot on an initial cross backups be somewhere in the 52s to mid 52s. So that should come down in theory. So I would double check it though. But the upper second giving us that confluence that mid to the mid $50,000 region, 55 to 56 is the more likely destination for price. And the bands are compressed enough in my opinion that if it did get above the upper second that we're likely to see what's called a replace and that upper third begin to move up into that 58.8 to 61,350 zone. And then Bitcoin has the availability to go hit that monthly at around 58.8 to that 61,350 from the daily perspective in this case. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 2-day, which did just open. And hey, look at that. The 2-day held the upper first standard deviation. This was one thing that we have been looking for as well. In addition to many of the other things that we talked about on the 12-hour setup leading into the daily setup, that leading into the 2-day setup, which is still in Bollinger Band expansion phase. but we are seeing BBWP price volatility cool down. This is likely to pick back up, get above the moving average, and if it is going to continue through the and do that, it's going to do that in the next 2-day closure. Upper second standard deviation is coming in at $56,000 currently. So wicks above, closures above, very good. Very likely to turn BBWP back above the moving average. Moving average then will follow shortly thereafter. A little bit of a latent signal, but a confirmation that we're in a markup phase when we do see something like that occur. The bands themselves right now, just by virtue of holding that upper first standard deviation on the 2-day chart, coming in at 51,272 currently on the close open of the 2-day. Man, this was such a picture perfect test and then retest of the 2-day upper first zone. I think it's beautiful, man. What a beautiful thing. Now momentum for the 2-day, same thing. We're looking in that for another cross back up to complete, which will likely drop this pivot, which is currently at, meaning drop the criteria for the pivot, the number or the dollar amount for the pivot down a bit. Currently, it is at 53,625. So upon closure of the candle in the next 2-day, which will occur, on Tuesday's close. So we will talk about this on Wednesday's live stream. But in this case, we're looking up and to the right with a momentum shift, with higher low structure, with holding that volatility upper first. The volatility level on the bands here of the upper first, then it's looking for liftoff. The follow through from this 3-day, which had this beautiful compression, is just absolutely stellar as well. We saw that wonderful drawdown into the lower second, regain and consolidate with a nice compression on the Bollinger Bands here, lift off to the upper second, get above it, get that expansion, staying well above that upper first, which is now at 49,773. This is going to close today. If it closes above the upper second, that's continued expansion of BBWP in the context of Bollinger Band expansion, which is likely targeting the mid 50s and higher to those deeper targets in the upper 50s, lower 60s. And in this case, a closure today, end of day above 54,120 would do it. That would be another, criteria. We'll likely see the upper second chase, much as it has been doing with price. So it's probably going to update to somewhere around wherever this 3-day close comes in, or close to open. And then as long as it's staying above, it's maintaining Bollinger Band expansion on volatility expansion. So we're looking for upside to continue. The pivot is at $52,000. That's likely going to update quite aggressively after a move like this. We see that we have the 3-day throwing a beautiful hidden bullish divergence, which is just indicating continuation in the context of expansion to the upside in this case. Very likely that we're going to see, another bearish divergence drive unless it gets above, an RSI read of like 87. So, just to give you an idea, the 80 read at the bullish control, at the bull critical zone, 60,750. The user alert up there is at all-time highs and higher. The user alert on the 3-day is at 69,937. So almost $70,000 up here by this yellow line. In order to get above there to avoid a bearish divergence on the 3-day time frame, which is likely just going to be corrective, to be quite honest, we can actually get the RSI read over here to see what price level it would need to close at to avoid, or, it can't put in a high basically below here, or else it will throw bearish divergence, right? So we can actually determine this level by looking at this high up here. What was its read? 86.84. So it would need to read at about an 87 before putting in a high to avoid bearish divergence up there. So we could just move that user alert line, user alert level high to an 87 and see what price that is to avoid bearish divergence here. We're looking at user alert high is 75,600 to avoid bearish divergence on the 3-day. So I would not be surprised if we see bearish divergence develop on the 3-day, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this thing just starts ripping to the upside just prior to the halving here, coming into the end of the month. This is, the last 2 days of the month. So we are going to be talking about the monthly close on Wednesday's live stream, so don't miss it. We're going to be getting into that pretty deep there. But yeah, this looks really good on the 3 days continuation to the upside, especially, even if this thing got violently rejected locally, I think this is going to continue. 4-day, we're probably going to see follow through as well. This just opened. It did open below the upper second, but then now it is, heading right back for it on expansion. Nice compression to expansion. 72 over 53. This was confirmed the entire way. The only way this would have changed was below the upper first on a close for the 4-day, and that did not occur. That's at 49,500. Didn't even get tested. Stayed in the local range. Beautiful consolidation. Boom, up. I mean, from the 4-day perspective, right? We spent, a 4-day candle up here. Essentially we spent 12 days up here. Now it wasn't exactly 12 days because this candle opened and then pushed up, but essentially 10 days in this consolidation. Not bad before a move up. That was nice fuel to continue up. We got the 5-day that of course is still expanded to the upside, though. This type of expansion on the bands for the 5-day really does equate to, like, it's going to keep grinding the upper half of the bands, and once in a while it's going to dip down into the upper first, maybe even back to the basis at some point. Probably not before it updates a few times, meaning that we're in a markup phase, right? So as long as it's closing above the upper first, it's bullish. That's at 49,100 for the 5-day. If it closes above the upper second, we're looking at re-expansion of the Bollinger Bands with BBWP volatility expansion. So we've been expanding on volatility since this January 26th candle off the basis. We have seen volatility expansion. I mean, it didn't really start to pick up its read until beginning of February here, but now we're seeing that it's still maintaining its volatility expansion. Plus, we're looking at potential further Bollinger Band expansion to the upside. Beautiful, beautiful thing. This is bullish as all holy heck above the basis, no matter what, and that's at $45,000 basically. Weekly, big one. Again, this is setting up for just grinding sideways and up, as we've been speaking about for quite some time now. As long as it's closing above the upper first, that is likely what it's going to do. We can see the upper first has now updated to $48,000. So, sorry for the crackling there on the microphone. $48,000 is going to be the kind of the breaker for this in terms of BBWP volatility expansion. So, price volatility within the context of the Bollinger Bands in this case. If it does close above the upper second, we'll see a BBWP uptick. We'll see a nice spread out of the Bollinger Bands again. But it's more likely to grind and just keep playing in this strong half of the bands. Very strong above the upper first, and price volatility is very likely up into that upper third, especially if we start seeing it closing daily candles above the weekly upper second. Weekly upper second is at $54,000 right now. So if it does close dailies above there, the weekly upper third is a very likely candidate. Guess where that's coming in? Around $60,000. So again, that 58.8 to 61,350 monthly zone. And that's kind of it for resistances. I mean, likely to see volatility in the lower term timeframes around those ranges, hedging and like all kinds of other stuff. But we just saw a nice consolidation on Bitcoin. So if it's going to push through the mid 50s, we're likely going to see those low 60s. And then we just, evaluate, look for decent pullbacks, see how price reacts in those areas, and then up and away towards the all-time high. Is it going to get there before the halving? I mean, it's looking like it wants to. At minimum, test the all-time high zone before the halving. That is where things are kind of headed right now. And of course, we'll take a look at this further in the Wednesday live stream for the monthly close. So I'm gonna open it up to some questions here, and we'll run it back to some of the medium term time frames, um, and we can look at something like the 12-hour here. We're getting expansion of the 12-hour bands into a contraction on the daily, so we can take a look at this, and then I'm gonna throw the tunes back on. We're not going to look at anything else today, just Bitcoin. I'm a little late today because, well, one, I was trading and then I was doing some other stuff between now and then. So we will follow up with all kinds of stuff on Wednesday coming into the monthly. So we'll take a look at Bitcoin. We'll take a look at traditional markets, gold and Dixie and all that stuff as well. But just for now, admire the 12-hour candle because that is a beauty right there. And it's a beauty in the context of nice higher lows that it's going to put in here as well. Again, if you don't understand what I was saying in the lower term timeframes, my favorite setup, if you're not understanding that, please go ahead and let me know in the chats so that I can re-explain it in a manner that might illustrate some of the questions you have about it, or answer some of the questions you might have about it. Yeah, let's go ahead and turn the tunes on. Let me read the chat real quick here. Let's go ahead and turn that back on. Get a little background music going here so I can read. And it's not just silence on my end here. All right, so Sam, you're correct. Yep. Hit our zone. You were here last week. We talked about all of this. Bobby says 58K, who's ready? Exactly. You can see how it is definitely on the table now, right? I would not rule out a pit stop here, even if it's just lower term time frames in the mid 50s, but yeah, major overhead resistance 58.8 to 61.350. And that's kind of it. I mean, it's just daily resistances, there's a couple weeklies up there, but it's not even it's not what I would consider the major resistances. Probably swing the areas and even the dailies and maybe even longer term time frames before heading up, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this thing just hit 70 to 75,000 like we were talking about before the halving. I would not be surprised. It's definitely looking like it wants it. Okay. Landy was in a long trade. I was, yeah. I mean, I've been in swing longs for a while, but I scalped that move up today. Well, very early in the morning, and I had a nice scalp over the weekend. Basically, scalping the deviation of the 58 or 50,800 weekly zone when it dipped into the mid 50s. That deviation, I took that deviation from around, I think I got in like around 50,700 or something when it confirmed the low on the 15-minute chart, and then I just rode that to 51.8 for that scalp, and then I got out there. It played around in that area, but take profits. You don't want to pay fees, for any margin or anything like that, or any trade fees for keeping it open if you don't need to. It already basically hit up the majority of the targets. So take profit, came back to it, of course, not too long after that. Had the expansion to the downside that I was watching carefully, and then it started to go back for the retest below the lower first after testing the basis band area on that 15-minute. Then I had alerts going off. It's like 3:45, 4 in the morning. I was like, oh, if it goes in for the test around that lower second, I'm taking it. So expansion to retest, double bottom, boom, up. All right, so Baba, never say where you're going to short something. You might have bigger players that use that information against you. Don't give the specific number until after you've done it and you've taken your profit. Don, hello. So Sam says, if you have the time at the end of the talk to me, what usually happens before the halving, in it and after it? I mean, what usually happens before the halving is you rally into it. Typically, I mean, we've rallied into halvings, and then there's a bit of a sell-off, and then up and away. I mean, you're going to see, if you're talking from a technical point of view or a price point of view, that's really... I'd be very careful shorting an expansive move. If you're going to counter trade this expansion, you need to be very, very careful. You need to be in and out, and they should be very quick scalps. And there's no resistance left. So you got to understand that there is no resistance left. So they're going to try and use any kind of short fuel to keep pushing things up. So understand, when you get expansion, the residual expansion, price volatility expansion of that move is, exacerbated by people taking profits in different zones and then people shorting or hedging, depending on which direction they're going to play. But you need to be very, very careful that you are in and out of that position very quickly, because otherwise you will end up the fuel, whether by hitting your stop or whatever it is. Hopefully not a liquidation. Hopefully you are using reasonable stops and you have a risk management, kind of plan that you're adhering to. But you don't want to become, you don't want to catch the knives to the downside typically, unless they are falling right on a very specific higher term time frame level into a recent support resistance zone. Everything above 53 is not recent resistance. So it's basically price discovery until it finds the higher time frame resistance. And then you don't want to be the fuel that pushes it up to that higher time frame resistance if you're shorting, and not getting in and out very quickly. So, but yes, maybe a pit stop around the mid 50s is what I'd be looking for, but that's not a guarantee. You gotta wait for things to cool down on the lower term time frames, come back to it and define your criteria on the higher term. So, I mean, like the 4 hour, this thing is not even remotely gonna cool down, in my opinion, as long as it's above that upper second. So it does give it a range. This thing could fall back to 53,800 and still be fine. It could even dip below it, but as long as it's closing above there, expansion to the upside is far more likely than not. And I think it did hit just under 55 right now, so 54,980. So there might be opportunity here in the lower term time frames. But even on the 15 minute, I mean, there's no real, there might be a trade back to the basis at some point here, but the basis is rising quickly. I mean, there's a swing off that, but realistically, catching bullets or rockets, not smart until you see confirmation of a lower term time frame reversal that set up that meets your criteria, and then in and out, because it's expansion on the 4, on the 12 hour. You want to pick those zones very quickly, get in, get out, and then move on. So, I mean, this is strong on even the 15 minute above 54,200. Very strong above 53,7 to 8. Like I said, that's the 4 hour area. That's also the 15 minute basis. So, 4 hour just updated as well. So we had a move up in the upper first now to 52,750. So this is going to be Bollinger Band expansion above even that zone. Can you scalp it back to these areas? Absolutely. Just be very careful. That's all. Just so pretty. 4 hour candle up into that 2021 weekly swing high and then push above. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. You know, low term time frame pullbacks from here. Again, as long as it's closing above around 53, basically, this is going to keep going up and to the right. And maybe stall out a little bit, reaccumulate before going to hit the monthly at 58.8 to 61.350. But that's definitely, as I pointed out on the time frames higher than the daily, looks beautiful, and that 12-hour is likely going to tell the story. So confirmed expansion to the upside in an aggressive manner for the Bollinger Bands above the upper second here at 53.250. So any close above there by the end of today, this is going to get continued expansion to the upside, targeting the mid 50s and higher. I mean, basically right where it is and higher. Cheryl says, exciting day. Yeah. Again, I don't think anybody in this group is shocked, right? We've been talking about this for quite a long time. We discussed it, basically this exact scenario all last week. All right, so it's always fun. That's the thing, even though we knew what the criteria was, right? We defined the criteria last week. This is playing out as expected. It's still awesome to see it happen, right? It's awesome every single time. And that is, of course, provided you're on the right side of the trade. If you're not, then you need to understand and change your criteria, and or you need to understand, what it is that that you're doing wrong. Like maybe you're trying to counter trend trade or play the range when you should have been checking that it was getting expansion on certain time frames, like the hourly. That's a common one, actually. It's like, I was playing the range and then got blown out. Well, off the lows, expansion right here, was the name of the game. Expansion occurred right back to the highs at 53. That was your warning. The hourly was getting aggressive expansion to the upside. And if it did not, pull back from here, we were likely to see continuation above 53. And as I had mentioned, 53 had been tested already 2 times. And it's also the top of the range. So if you push above the top of the range, you're going to wipe out all the shorts at their stops above the range, and or they're going to exit, which is just going to provide more fuel to the upside, along with spot buying that's already happening. So beautiful, beautiful move. I freaking love it. And I mean, if you weren't sure, the half hour was expanding beautifully. That close came in at 52,400, and that was a nice early indicator if you were even late to this. And of course, like I said, I was getting the bottom side here, so the expansion down to retest is what I was looking for my particular long trade. It was still in and above the weekly zone as well at 50,800. Otherwise, I would have been looking lower, and of course, the criteria would have been below this first low on expansion, right? So that would have been continuation if this went down below there, and that was at a low of 50,900. If the candles continued through that area, they would have re-expanded and broke this low, thus getting expansion to lower prices, probably testing somewhere around the mid 50s again, maybe even low 50s, but that didn't happen. So the setup that I was watching was expansion to the retest that does not break the lows. So I was buying the retest of the expansion phase. So then it ran right back to the top side and then higher load. So this was already a higher low on a swing and a close. Trend break, higher low, we have full trend, right? So we got expansion that began at 51,500. So that was, even if you wanted to wait for confirmation, 51,500 was a beautiful expansion confirmation on the 15-minute to the upside. And, but in my case, I was looking for the setup off the weekly, which is my favorite setup. So on the other side of that, what am I looking for here? Well, we have expansion. So what I'd be looking for is expansion to a retest. If the retest does not pass the wick high here at 54,980, so basically 55K, and or if it passes it but can't close above it, by the upper second, I'll take the upper second and take that as a scalp back to the mean. Right now, I'm not playing any scalps back. There's no reason for me to. I took profit on my trade in the mid 50s, as I had said prior that I would do. So my first take profit, which is just to cover fees and stuff like that for the trade, was basically right back to the 51.8 weekly, which occurred right here on this basically these two candles right as expansion happened. That way, so if it drops the upper first, I at least have a little profit I can play around with the positioning if I need to at the basis, if it holds it, stuff like that. But it just continued through that and then hit my first main take profit. No, my main take profit. 54 to 55 is what I was. Yeah. So I had 54 to 55, and then that's my zone. So we did tap that. Yeah, and it did fill. Yeah. So that's like one of my main take profits. The next main take profit for that trade is going to be the monthlies above, and then the rest is going to ride. I'll even, I'm considering just turning it into a swing position as well if it inverts hard, right? So already in profit. I have a beautiful entry on that particular trade. Leave some on the table, and then I can walk that entry up by turning it into a swing. But it's not time yet, not even close. Unless I see like this thing just freaking bomb out to the bottom side, then I'm gonna be like, all right, let's look at some interesting areas. Of course, it's gonna be all the same areas we just talked about. I think there's no other real questions. I think that's going to do it for today. I do want to congratulate you all for making money if you're in some good trades and are holding just Bitcoin in general. Like if you're holding Bitcoin, congratulations. You're on the winning team. And congratulations. I know that there's some people in the community that have been doing very well across the board. I want to congratulate you guys and give you your props for sticking around through the bear market. For many of you, this was your first bear market. Some of you, it was your second. But even if you've been through bear markets many times before, in various capacities, whether it's, crypto, there's only so many you could have been through, but at minimum, traditional markets as well. I've been through some big drawdowns in my time. It's never easy. And you should reach around, pat yourself on the back if you're still here and you're still making money, or even if you're just still here. If you're still here, you're going to make it. Just don't get in your own way. Don't catch punches to the face. Don't catch knives. Be logical, be methodical, and you'll be just fine. Trade with good risk management, and you'll be all right. Excellent spin. Excellent. Yep, that's great. Sam says first time. First time in a bear market? I'm assuming you got in the bull market then. Very few people enter in the bear market are like, you know what, I'm thinking about that crypto thing now. Unless they're getting pulled in by the ETF news and are like, I don't know if I want to own an ETF. Maybe I want to own spot. But I'm assuming you probably got in either at the end of the bull market, start of the bear market. But if you're just getting in now, well, you're in at the perfect time. But yeah. There's going to be a lot of things going on with Bitcoin. I mean, the controversy that Mara has kicked up, the Taproot upgrade enabled some things that legitimately are viewed as bugs, but the filter conversation, something that is going to be heating up, especially when you have companies that are literally rebranding themselves as Bitcoin development companies, meaning we're talking MicroStrategy here. And they aren't going to be the only one, and they're not the only one, I can assure you. Let's see, so Spin says, second bull run the first time with your money in the game. Yeah, nice. Sam says it's not first time, but it reminds you of the first time. Baba, you're welcome. Sam has on his moon boots. Got on his moon boots, waving the little Bitcoin pennant around. Wearing a shirt that says "When Lambo." Just kidding. I mean, come on. If you're not entertained by price action, all you got to do is like watch some weekend Twitter crypto influencers fight each other, and then one of their coins completely get freaking wrecked. Like literal zero after they lose a fight. I mean, like this whole thing of like crypto guys getting into like MMA is the most hilarious way to settle beefs. And I can't deny the entertainment factor in it. Like, what a weird turn for some of these absolute shit human beings. And then there's like really good dudes that are also in this too that I'm a big fan of. Just them as people, including some of the things they've done in the crypto space. Of course, not a crypto coin guy. I mean, maybe, I guess MetaSignals is an NFT project, all right? But Crown, Eric Crown, like, he should have won. He should have been declared the winner of his fight anyway, back when they did their crypto fight night thing. But now he's like, I'll fight Ben. I got to get my weight up, though. I'm assuming he would have to bulk up, which, of course, going to heavier weights, you saw the all-time crypto scammer definitely hopped up on way more than smelling salts for his crypto fight night feature there with the creator of Sonic Obama Inu, whatever the hell that piece of garbage was, $ Bitcoin, and then absolutely get just kind of mauled by a bear of a human being with nothing to lose and a whole lot of something pumping through his system to keep him there. Like, dude, oh my god. But yeah, and then his coin just absolutely getting annihilated after. I think that thing actually went to zero. Like, it was already pretty close, but it like actually hit zero. Just negative liquidity in that thing. But yeah. When do I think there'll be a 50% drop? Don't know. Don't have an opinion. Don't care. We'll see it coming. Or where do I think it'll drop? I don't know. Where and when don't matter. Look, anybody that's projecting potential pullbacks right now before they see higher term time frame highs put in that can be measured for those pullbacks, that are just giving you speculation, or you are just speculating if you're the one doing it. Don't speculate. Speculation leads to trading bias. You don't want to trade bias. I mean, if you want to look at the whole structure, and the move is ongoing. So, like, if you look at the whole structure on the monthly, which is, again, in an expansive phase, you know, from here, you know, you're looking at a 12% pullback, puts things at 47,500. You know, if you're looking for like a 40 to 50% pullback, that puts it at the basis, you know, around $30,000. But why look for that when there's no high, right? It would have to be threatening to put in a high first before you start looking for larger time frame pullbacks like that. Just doesn't make any sense to entertain those. I mean, could there be one shots? Sure, but you don't typically see it right from the peak of the high unless there's something major going on. Sorry, the microphone stands still a little squeaky. So, like, unless you're looking for like major shots. I mean, if you think like, oh, well, maybe it's going to pull back from the all-time high and it'll pull back 50%. Like, even from there, you're looking at like 32 to 39, 38, 38, 5 to 39, which is the upper first, right? So, and this is going to update. I'm not in the business of like projecting percentages of possible pullbacks within a possible time frame without seeing a high. Only once there's a high. You can have an opinion about it. I don't have an opinion about it because I don't have data to form that opinion. And if you are forming that opinion, you are forming that based on just a bias. You're not forming it based on the data. And you need to form it based on the data. So like if you're like Sam, if you're looking for like where do I think it would drop 50% from, can't give you that information until we see a high. You need the data. I need the data. Same for you, Spin. You can look into the 60K area, but why look in that area? And don't look in that area and say like around that area I think it's going to be a 20% drop. That you have no data for that particular theory. So what you have to do is you have to wait for a high and then you can extrapolate things from there. So whether it's a weekly high or a monthly high, and I would go higher term time frame, because if the monthly is expanding like this and continues expanding like this, we've got 2 days left. If it closes above 47,500, which it was already threatening to do anyway, which is the upper second. We're going to get into this on Wednesday, but the next area to take is the highs. It's literally the highs. We're looking at 58.8 to 61.350, and then the all-time highs. Probably lower term time frame resistance at 65 to 69 at the wicks. But we're looking at $70 to $75,000 as the primary upside targets to look for things to potentially put in local structure highs, but that's not even a macro high. Those are freaking dailies to 3-day time frame. Like, that's got nothing to do with the longer term time frame. Could you see it start there? Sure. But you need to see it really start turning around like a weekly and monthly to put in a major high. And then we can look for those larger pullbacks and zones of interest from them. Right now, it's not even worth speculating. It's not. And people will speculate, though. You might even be speculating, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're wrong. why are you wrong if you're speculating right now? I know everybody hates being told they're wrong, including me. And I used to try to speculate. But if you don't have the data, you can't have an informed opinion about it. So just wait for the data, and then you form your opinion around that. And just remember that every opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got them. But if your asshole's full of data, you got a better opinion. Wait. Probably not the best analogy. Let's go ahead and look at RSI on here. Just real quick. Okay, bullish control zone. Just curious. We're going to get a little preview because this is going to update, and we'll double check this on Wednesday. But bull critical zone is the 80 read up there. That's $84,500. So $84,000 to $85,000. Critical level, which it has hit every single time, but is going to be decreasing over time, is the user alert level, and that's $132,000. And you might recall, we've done this fib quite a lot. We can't fib. It's silly to fib the ongoing move until we see a high, maybe lower, at least on the weekly. But from the monthly perspective, we can fib this move, and we get that zone around the 1272 to the 1414, right there in that main user alert level line. Oh God, what did I do? I just fucked everything up. No. Let's just hit back and we'll be fine. Right around the user alert level line. So that's right in that zone, a little bit above it actually at 132.5. So that's where, when we do see the all-time high break and we see a weekly high or something like that, wherever the weekly highs come in above, we'll get an early lead on it, and I'll talk about this on Wednesday. But when we do break the all-time high and then we see a weekly high, confirmed swing and closing high, then we can take this fib and move it over to the current move, just to get a lead on possibly where the monthly is. And then we can also gauge those areas of interest for potential larger pullbacks, like what you guys were asking. When do you expect, or where do you expect a pullback of large magnitude to come? And look, 50% is, if it's doing 50% in pullbacks, then we got bigger problems going on. 20%, 30% as volatility picks up, not too crazy. 50% if it's on any kind of a close, probably going to kick off some bad shit. Really depends on how volatile things get in this run. Look, in the move up on every bull expansion, you're not getting 50% pullbacks anyway. So just understand that, that's a low likelihood. And when it does happen, we got one, right? This wasn't a 50% pullback, right? When you take into context where this came from, this pullback from back here was 25 to 30% from the highs. All right, so you got literally, we can actually get the drawdown percentage. So I don't know, it was 50. You're right, I am wrong. It's log scale, so I'm all fucked up. So on the wick to wick, it was 55. I don't really see that happening. I mean, you might be referring to something like these drawdowns, but these were bear market. That was the first bear market lower high and a close, so I don't consider those valid. But in the context of the entire move, I mean, that price action might have been a 50% pull down wick to wick from that particular high to that particular low, but in the context of the entire move up, 50% was over here at $15,500. Oh, hey, look at that. That's exactly the area that Bitcoin tested. Remember this? Closing above the 50%. So that was your 50% pullback, right? That's what you're looking for. 50% drawdown from wick to wick. I mean, you can have that on the 15-minute, right? So if you're looking, it really just matters what time frame are you looking at. Are you looking at closing to major drawdowns, or are you looking for percentages, based on a specific time frame? So you can get a 50% pullback from the move that we just had, like this, right? So you can get a 50% pullback in the context of a 15-minute move, but from where it originated, this impulsive structure started here, but from the higher low up, when 50% pullback, well, $53,000 basically. If you want to take more aggressive, you take the higher low that was confirmation of the structure being in an uptrend, and you can see that you wouldn't want it to pull back to 53 without regaining it. 618 is the area to hold, around 53.5 for the 15-minute, right? So, but that, in the context of a drawdown, that is quite a drawdown, right? But that's for that particular move. All right, I think that's going to do it for today. I will discuss actually exactly that again on the Wednesday live stream if you have any further questions regarding it. Just know that you want the data before making a possible prognostication regarding something like that. For now, just stick with what's in front of you and trade what's in front of you. You'll be just fine. What's on the chart live, not what could potentially happen in the future, is what you need to be paying attention to. Chart's going to tell you what's going to happen in the future. All right, you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy is out. I will talk to you again in live stream format on Wednesday. And of course, I may or may not be able to get a video out tomorrow for a staring at charts. So if anything interesting does happen, I will definitely try. But tomorrow is going to be a pretty busy day for me. So take care of yourself, guys. Thank you for hanging out. As always, I'm going to get the timer up. I will leave the stream running for those of you that like to kind of review what's been going on. On your charts. And yeah, appreciate you guys. Take care. Appreciate you guys and gals. My apologies, Cheryl. How you doing, by the way? Take care of yourselves.